time once again, Dr. Chabot.
Hey, Aaron, my pleasure. Great to be with you and great segment on the UFOs and the first file dump. I had a chance to watch your previous segment.
Oh, thank you so much. It's definitely fascinating just to hear about all of that and just see the videos that are coming out from that. But as we look at the war in Iran too, Dr. Chabot, I think it's interesting as well the fact that President Trump saying that he's confident that a peace deal could be near, as is Pakistan at this point.
Yeah, it's interesting. Just before coming on air, Trump announced that there is a 3-day ceasefire, not that we're talking about Iran in this case, but between Russia and Ukraine. So the White House is trying to operate on all fronts. But look, Iran, there are a lot of major headlines out the last 24, 48 hours, as you know. Look, even though there is a ceasefire on record, I think when you look at it, it doesn't appear that way. So the United States has exchanged fire with Iran. Iran targeted 3 U.S. destroyers. Our destroyers are very capable, but they were in the Strait of Hormuz. Now, if you remember, we had 2 U.S. destroyers go through the Strait of Hormuz to do an escort of 2 U.S. flagged ships last week. They were successful in getting them out. However, today, or in the last 24 hours, Iran attacked our ships with drones, missiles, and fast boats. Now, none of Iran's missiles or fast boats or drones hit their targets, but we did retaliate. And that retaliation, some may see as, we're not at a ceasefire, we're firing at each other. So CENTCOM, which is our U.S. forces in control in that region, have called these as self-defense strikes against Iranian targets.
And that makes sense because that's what people are saying in a lot of ways too. Hey, how can there be a ceasefire at this point when we're still firing at each other at this point? So I think there's going to be there's a lot of confusion, but your explanation there makes sense. I'm curious to see if we get an offer from Iran, like Secretary of State Marco Rubio hopes that we receive as well. I mean, we've gone into the last few weekends, Dr. Chabot, thinking there could be peace talks, and then they just haven't happened at this point.
Yeah, to see the Secretary of State Marco Rubio more visible, if you will, in the media is important because this is not just a war, this is also a diplomatic effort. And so Secretary Rubio was not as active in comments in previous weeks. To see him front and center right now making comments is critical. That signals diplomacy. Trump yesterday had announced that although there is this one-pager rumored that Pakistan is helping to negotiate between Iran and the United States, Trump yesterday said, look, it's really not one page, which I would tend to agree with. I don't know how you could squeeze a ceasefire onto one page. I think the better way for your viewers to look at this is that one page is almost a memorandum of understanding of what will come forward afterwards. I think right now Pakistan is just trying to get both sides on the table to have an agreement on an agreement for greater details.
Yeah, and at this point, I know markets reacted earlier this week when there was hope for a ceasefire. Of course, stocks going up worldwide, oil prices coming back down. And at this point, that is something that a lot of Americans, especially us here in Michigan, are hoping for, because paying the nearly $5 a gallon. Some stations I saw today over $5 a gallon. So that relief couldn't come fast enough as far as reopening the Strait of Hormuz goes as well.
Yeah, I don't feel gas prices are going to drop anytime soon. Historically, when gas prices rise, even when tempers simmer down, it still takes a number of weeks, if not months, for those prices to drop. Some economists today said this could go on for quite some time. A CIA kind of leaked memo that other news agencies have been reporting on today basically said, look, Iran has the capacity to be able to sustain going forward despite our stranglehold on them economically for a number of months. Well, that does not bode well for prices here at home for gas. What's interesting is when you look at Iran, not only are they targeting our U.S. military vessels as we transit the Strait of Hormuz, but they're also hitting UAE, United Arab Emirates, a big ally of the United States. They're basically firing right over the Strait of Hormuz into United Arab Emirates. And last week, they hit an oil terminal for Jirja. Sorry if I'm not pronouncing it correctly. But what's important about that is there is an oil pipeline that can basically evade ships needing to use the Strait of Hormuz through this pipeline. Saudi Arabia has a similar pipeline which goes south to the Red Sea. Combining both those pipelines, you're still looking at about less than 50% of all oil that still could go through the Strait of Hormuz in a normal period where there is no war. So there is no easy way out of this. The strait has to be opened if we're going to stabilize pricing, not just from gas and oil, but commodities as well as the world economies.
And I'm not sure that people knew about that pipeline that existed, but that's good to know. And especially, even though a little bit would help, it's still not nearly what normally would get through the Strait of Hormuz. I want to ask you, just as we go through the next few days and hours, what are you going to be watching as we go through all of this? I think we both discovered over the last few weeks that it's hard to predict what's going to happen in this war at this point. But what are you watching? What are the big storylines here for you?
Yeah, really what this so-called one pager, although we know it's more than one pager, but that's how it's being referred to in the press, comes to terms with. We know that both Iran and the United States have signaled favorably on the content of this one pager. I would anticipate within 24 or 48 hours, we're going to hear more of that. Hearing Trump speak today about the ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine that the United States helped to orchestrate, I think also signals more diplomacy going forward. However, based on the firefight today between Iran and our U.S. forces, anything is possible, and it's really difficult to project what a successful outcome will look like. We know that we've got to open up the strait, and that is on everybody's minds, not just in the United States, but France right now is sending a carrier to the strait. Other nations are paying attention. We've got to figure this out because the economy is going to begin to teeter based on what's happening economically.
Absolutely. Retired Naval Intelligence Commander Dr. Paul Chabot, we really appreciate you helping us break all of this down. We know you'll be paying attention to the latest developments along with us. Thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure. Thanks, Aaron.
409